You know that you need to have an editor if you want your book to have any chance of success when you first self-publish it. Even if you wanted planning to send it to an agent or a traditional publisher, you still need to get it edited first. But one of the most difficult things that a lot of new authors find is how to find a good editor. Now, in previous videos, I have talked about, especially when you're starting out, the most effective way to find an editor is to ask a friend or to hook up with another author online and do a reciprocal engagement when it comes to editing. When I first started, as I've always said, my first 2 books were never edited at all. My next 3, I think they were edited as part of a reciprocal agreement I had with other authors that I had met in my genre in the meantime, and we would swap books. So we would edit each other, which was always a good idea. Sometimes you may have a friend or a family member who has, who's got a lot of skills in that area. I know one particular new author, when she actually started after writing a really good suggestion for a story in one of the comments in my private group. And all of my readers got around behind her and sort of said, you should write this, you should write this. I think she's on about her 12th or 14 books now, and she has written some amazingly big sagas. And I happen to know for a fact that her husband edits her work for her, which is really handy and helpful. So if you're looking for an editor, quite often a family member or friend or whatever else can be helpful. Now, if you prefer to go a more professional route, this is where you do put yourself in a situation where you can be open to be scammed. It's Friday afternoon and I'm having a bit of trouble with my words today. But the first thing I would say is, I initially wrote down in my notes, don't touch anybody that cold emails you. But then I was thinking to myself, I was trying to remember how it is I got my current editor. I have 2 editors. My daughter is one, because she's an author in her own right too. But I also have another editor who lives in the States, and it's really handy because she's the one that picks up all my Britishisms and everything else, and will let me know if I've used a line of dialogue that doesn't translate that well to Americanism. However, I'm trying to think how I got her, and I think she did cold email me. Now, in most cases, it's fairly easy for authors to recognize a scam when they see it on the page. Somebody will make loud promises about this, that, and the other. They will talk about how one of the members of their incredible team is going to do this, that, and the other. Then they will charge you an arm and a freaking leg for their services. And then they won't leave you alone if you tell them no. Those are all classic hallmarks of a scam. However, I do believe, I'm fairly sure my current editor did cold email me. And I'm trying to think. The things that impressed me about the email was, 1, they had looked at my social media profile and they had read some of my work. That's always a good start. They mentioned relevant points of a story in their email. So I knew that they had genuinely read my work before. Then they, rather than push me to make a decision or anything else, they simply mentioned that they had a few openings available and they directed me to their website. Now, I do know that clicking on a website link in an email is a no-no, but you can go and type the name into Google and get to it that way. And I did. And this website was very professional. It outlined prices. It outlined different areas of service and what it included. The whole thing also mentioned about having a contract, which I thought was a really good idea. And then there was the payment plans and everything was mentioned underneath. Now, I have my editor on a retainer, and I think that is really useful because I write a lot of books every year, and I want to know I have a space guaranteed for my editor when I finished a book. So I find that useful for me. You may be looking for an editor on a book by book basis, but you still need to take care that you're not getting ripped off. Before you even think about employing a person, because that's what you're doing, you're employing an editor, you need to find out, how do they mark up their edits? Do they just send you a list of comments with page references? Do they use, which is my preference, track changes in Word? Are they prepared to sign an NDA so they do not disclose your work to anybody else, especially before it's published? These various things on how they work and what they charge is very important to nail down before you part with any of your money. And this brings me to another point. A scammer will insist that they don't need any of that. A scammer will insist that they will just take care of things. A scammer will not be prepared to answer your questions, and you do need to ask them. How long will the edit take? How will it show? Like, what will you get back? As I say, I get my document back full of track changes with the occasional comment if my editor has come up and said, well, we don't say that here. And they might suggest something else in a comment. Or they can say, like, I just had an edited book back this morning, and my editor said the way you spell Griffin is not Merriam-Webster approved. There are two ways of spelling Griffin, one with an I and one with a Y. I spelt my Griffin with a Y. My editor mentioned they hadn't changed it. They are just letting me know for consistency going forward if this was how I wanted that particular word to be spelled in subsequent books in the series. That is what a good editor will do. So you need to know all of these things before you part with any money. And that brings me to a next and possibly unpopular stance. But I will not pay for an edit until I get my edited version back. Now, as I pointed out, my current editor is on a retainer. I have been working with her now for over a year, so she has done a number of my books for me. And initially, she offered to do the first book for me before I paid my first month's retainer. And I felt that was very fair. And I felt at the time, I can see what they do. I can see if we can work together, because she was equally open about the fact of whether or not she wanted to be able to, she wanted to read my books. And they've got to read your words. But she had read books of mine before, and that made a difference as well. Now, it's not a prerequisite. If you're a new author, obviously, you're not going to have a book for them to read first. But you do need to ask the basic questions of how much it's going to cost, what does that money include in their service, how long is it going to take, particularly if you're working on marketing and everything else. You want to know, what happens when you get your edits back. And you need to know that it is one person who is working on your book. If an editing firm starts talking about a team, that is not what you want in an editor. You want one person who will send you updates. You want one person who will say, oh, hey, look, I've come across this and I'm not sure about it. You want somebody who is as keen on getting your book right as you are. And that is vital when you're choosing an editor for your first book. But as I say, if you're a new author, go the friend route first, or go into one of the larger Facebook groups for writers, for authors in your genre, and see if you can get some recommendations. Honestly, it's so easy to get scammed these days, and unfortunately, it's a common occurrence. At the moment, I'm getting a lot of scam emails about, I notice your website isn't #1 on Google. Do you want me to send you this, that, and the other? Yeah, no, I don't. I don't. My blog is not meant to rank #1 on Google. It's for my readers to get an all-in-one all-in-one block of all my different books and everything else they're looking for. It's not got a touch of ACO, but I get emails about that all the time. It's just part of being an author, my friends, and you'll get used to it. But if there's something I haven't covered, or you think of a question as I've been talking about this, and you feel I haven't covered it, would you please mention it in the comments below? Because I'll either do my best to help you in that comment, or I will make another video. I do put out long form content on Mondays and Thursdays. I do batch process these because ultimately I am a writer, but that's how I make my money. I'm not monetized on YouTube. And I haven't got a course or something I can offer you. So I do need to, spend most of my time writing. But I came to this with a genuine desire to help new authors, especially older ones. That you can have a life like this too, where I'm sitting here thinking, it's Friday and I might have something decadently wicked for dinner, like a couple of biscuits and a cup of tea. And that's one of the joys of living alone. You can eat what you like when you like, and I'm actually not very hungry. But anyway, sorry, you didn't need to know anything about that. Please, if there's anything you need, please drop it in the comments below. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I'd love to see you back here. I've actually got quite a long back catalogue of videos as well. So it may be that there's something else there that might help you. I have tried recently, I tried to put them into playlists. So there's a playlist for marketing, a playlist for writing, a playlist for mental health, and a playlist for something else. I'm not sure, but there's 4 of them. So you might want to check them out too. But in the meantime, my friends, would you please keep writing? And as always, I will catch up with you in the next one. Bye.